Hello, everybody. I'm Jason Rosenbergy. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Terso Solutions. And today we have with us Ross MacGregor. And Ross is the Vice President for TrackCore, Vice President of Business Development. And TrackCore is a valued partner of Terso's. And we're here to talk a little bit about automation in the healthcare supply chain and some of the impacts of automating through software and RFID and the benefits those have provided. And so I'll turn it to Ross to introduce himself. And then maybe Ross, if you can jump in right away and talk a little bit about what you're seeing for the current state of inventory management across acute care hospitals and some of these customers of yours that you've come across that are really trying to do things in a manual fashion.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Great to be with you and appreciate the conversation here today. Just, I guess, a quick introduction of who TrackCore is. We really got our start in the early 2000s, and that's when the Joint Commission, FDA, started highly regulating tissue tracking. And at the time, there really were no software solutions, applications to help clinical, supply chain leaders, healthcare providers in this challenging workflow. So we actually engaged a number of clinical leaders local to us here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, to really help build this software. And this really was pre the Meaningful Use Initiative, and frankly, before a lot of the healthcare records were commonplace in healthcare. And all hospitals across the board had a very manual process around tissue tracking. So we were forced as an organization at the time to really educate the market around this challenging process around tissue tracking, what the key requirements were of what they needed to do, and really had to dissect what their current process is so they were understanding of where they were not compliant, but also being able to help them know of how negatively impactful a manual process can be on their tissue tracking workflow. So it really, for a couple of years, we had to go through that process. But you fast forward here to 2022, and TrackCore really has become the leader in this niche market of tissue and implant tracking. We have roughly 900 hospitals using our TrackCore software for both tissue and implant tracking. But as it relates to the current state workflow of what is being done, oddly enough, still, almost 20 years later, hospitals still have very manual processes in place for tissue and implant tracking. And that starts off with, at the loading dock, being able to document and record, the tissue packaging that's being received, whether it's, ambient, it's something that may be coming in a controlled environment like wet ice, dry ice, or liquid nitrogen. And the Joint Commission, FDA, and other deeming authorities have very strict processes around these type of items around the full chain of custody. And because of that, that is where TrackCore is going to be designed, and is designed to start off at the loading dock until that final touch point. And the reason for that is because these items are really given a high level of importance around, because they are donor items, whether it's a living donor or it could be someone that was deceased. And these type of items are the responsibility of the healthcare providers to have very strict policies and procedures to make sure these items are tracked correctly, but also to make sure that they're not wasted and this human donor item goes wasted. So that is why these policies and practices for hospitals were put into place to have manual logbooks and sticker forms to do this. And that is where TrackCore is being built, or is built, to automate this process for the full chain of custody.
Are you still seeing those stickers and logbooks as you go in and 20 years later? Are you still running into that with hospitals trying to figure that out with that kind of process?
Yeah. Surprisingly, many hospitals, hundreds of hospitals around the country, are still doing this. While it's probably more known now that they have a need for an electronic solution, but it's still many that have yet to get to an electronic solution. So we have a variety of forms that we see, whether it's the sticker forms like you referenced. Some try to go to Excel or Access, but regardless, it's a very manual, labor-intensive process that's being done today.
Okay, well, then let's just jump a little bit into technology and some of those advancements and how you all have evolved maybe throughout your organization to meet the needs of these customers using those manual systems. So how have you evolved as an organization to help address some of those?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like I mentioned, initially TrackCore was designed to really be a very basic, standalone, non-integrated workflow. So if you think of back in the early 2000s, third-party integrations, RFID technology was not around. So it really relied on our customers to document, manually in TrackCore. That could be through keyboard entry. In some scenarios, there was barcode technology. But over the years, we have been able to expand again through RFID, through our partnership with Terso, third-party integrations with ERPs, materials management systems, and even with the FDA ruling that was passed in 2013, the UDI barcodes, that has allowed barcode technology to improve data entry as well. But as it relates to RFID, that has been a very important piece to our overall product offering because, again, without RFID, it really relies on the staff to document things manually. And with the use of the cabinets, refrigerators and freezers, it does provide an automated workflow for the clinical end users while maintaining a fully compliant process. And that really is our focus here at TrackCore, to make sure that we have a compliant process. And additionally, the third-party integrations is a very important piece to us as well. Again, if you think of historically, without those integrations, it really did rely on the nursing staff to dual document. So they're in the rooms documenting in the Cerners, the Epics, Meditechs of the world, as well as having to document in TrackCore. And with the integration improvements in the market, we actually have the ability to rely on the electronic health record as the source of truth, and that information that is integrated back to TrackCore. So really, with the use of TrackCore, RFID and the EHR integrations, it really creates a touchless process for our customers.
Yeah, really, really easing some of, not just the, not just the actual counting of and handling of inventory, but that whole dual documentation as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So talk a little bit about what's expected of hospital staff in terms of compliance, right? These are people hired primarily to provide patient care and assist in certain procedures and surgical procedures. What's the expectation on them? And maybe more specifically, how is cold chain playing a part in this?
Sure. Yeah. Another great question. The Joint Commission, FDA deeming authorities all have very strict, guidelines around tissue and biologic tracking. And it does apply to, again, ambient, but as well as the frozen products. And that is really where, when you talk about starting at the loading dock, the Joint Commission and those deeming authorities are most focused around those items that are coming in a controlled environment, because they have very specific temperature ranges that need to be met. So at that loading dock piece, they are required to validate that package is okay to be received, and that is the temperature validation and package integrity. Once items get into the OR, then absolutely the integrity of those items needs to be monitored as well. Automated temperature monitoring, but also the chain of custody is an important piece. So if you think of in a manual workflow, hospitals, clinical staff are required to document the event date and time of when they're taking a product out or adding a product to storage, who the responsible person is, and some key validation checks around that item. So again, temperature, expiration date, package integrity. So with the use of RFID, it has been able to even improve that process and automate that through simple use of a proximity badge. So if I was an end user and needed to get into a freezer, I can simply scan my badge and remove items, and it automatically knows in that scenario that Nurse Ross took 2 items out of the freezer at that particular date and time. And that allows us on the TrackCore side to start monitoring that product. If it's out of storage for too long, we have then reporting capabilities to say this can't be put back into storage, or there could be some type of recall or expiration warning on that item to have proactive alerting for the clinical end users.
Yeah, just alleviating that burden. Excellent. So a great example. We'll move on to another segment. In our next segment, we're going to continue the discussion with Ross, really digging deeper into best practices and outcomes that we've seen through the adopting of technology, including the TrackCore software platform and Terso RFID solutions to really improve these healthcare supply chain workflows. So be sure to click on the link and be connected with Terso and stay updated on everything.